The message arrived like a punch to the gut, delivered not by an emissary, but in the coldest form possible, a holographic transmission from the Galactic Council. The room fell into an oppressive silence as the figure of Tharn Vakros, the Council's head of justice, flickered into existence, his expression stone-faced and unreadable. By the laws of the Galactic Council, his voice rang out, metallic and emotionless, the human child, Ava Rodriguez, has been found guilty of a crime she did not commit. Her execution is final. Maya Cross stood frozen in the command center of Earth's military high command, her hand clenched around the edge of the conference table. The words hit her like a blow to the chest, reverberating in her mind as though they were still echoing around the room. The hologram of Vakros continued, unaffected by the turmoil he'd just unleashed. Ava Rodriguez, of Earth, is deceased. He paused for emphasis. Her death serves as a reminder that no one, not even the humans, are above the laws of the Galactic Council. The screen flickered once, then went blank. The hum of the air filtration system was the only sound in the room. No one moved. No one dared speak. Maya's eyes locked onto the empty space where Vakros' image had been, as if staring at the source of all this chaos could somehow change the outcome. Captain Cross, a voice finally broke the silence. It was Admiral Carter, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "What are we going to do about this?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She wasn't sure she had an answer. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her, waiting for her to act, for her to decide the fate of humanity in the face of this brutal injustice. She breathed in slowly, her mind racing. Ava Rodriguez had been a child, innocent, caught in a situation beyond her control. A mere accident, or so Earth's authorities had insisted. But the Galactic Council, with its cold logic and insufferable sense of superiority, had deemed her guilty. For what? A slight infraction? An accident that any species in the galaxy would have overlooked? The death sentence had been passed, without trial, without explanation, without mercy. Just a cold, calculating judgment, typical of the Council. "I'll gather the leaders," Maya said, her voice finally steady. She turned to face the holographic displays in the center of the room. It's time Earth made a decision. The room where the Earth's High Command met was vast and filled with the sharp scent of recycled air. On the circular table, the faces of Earth's most influential leaders appeared in holographic form, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and fury. Maya stood at the head of the table, the weight of her decision pressing on her shoulders like a physical force. Every face in the room was waiting for her to speak, their eyes searching her for the strength they needed. Admiral Carter spoke first. "We cannot let this go unchallenged. If we do, it will be seen as a sign of weakness. The galaxy will never take us seriously again." Maya looked around the room, noting the fierce expressions of those who had once looked down on humanity's place in the galaxy. Now, they were united in their anger, in their shared loss. Ava was a child, yes, but she represented something more. Her death was a signal that the Council saw humanity as little more than a tool to be used or discarded. It was a message to Earth that it was beneath them, that they would never be accepted as equals in the galaxy. "We need to show them that we're not afraid," General Hawkins said, his voice cold and controlled. "We need to remind them that Earth is not the weakling they thought it was." "And how do you suggest we do that?" Maya asked, her voice biting. "We're outgunned. Outmanned. The Council controls the flow of resources and the very laws of the galaxy. What do you think we could do?" A murmur ran through the room as the leaders exchanged looks. Everyone knew the risks. The Galactic Council was the supreme power in the galaxy. For any species to challenge it, to defy it so openly, was unthinkable. But then, it wasn't just any species challenging the Council. It was Earth. "I have a suggestion," Dr. Marlowe, the head of Earth's secretive Galactic Fleet project, spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension. "We've been keeping something hidden for a long time. I think it's time we used it." Maya raised an eyebrow, her attention snapping to Marlowe. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Marlowe met her gaze evenly. "The fleet." The room fell silent. For years, Earth had been secretly working on a fleet of ancient ships, vessels from an unknown civilization buried beneath the oceans of Earth, discovered centuries ago. Ships so advanced that no other species in the galaxy had the technology to replicate them. The fleet had been dormant for years, kept hidden from the galaxy at large. Maya's heart raced. The fleet was humanity's trump card. A weapon of unimaginable power, one capable of striking fear into even the Galactic Council. But it was also a gamble. The technology was ancient, the crews untested, and the political ramifications of such a move were beyond calculation. We could unleash it, Marlowe continued, his voice steady. We could strike at the heart of the Council. We could make them listen. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. The decision weighed heavily on her. If they unleashed the fleet, there would be no going back. The galaxy would either bend to humanity's will or it would destroy them all. But Ava's death, her senseless execution, had ignited something deep within Maya. The Council had crossed a line, and humanity would not kneel. We'll do it, Maya said, her voice firm. Prepare the fleet. And let the galaxy know what happens when you kill a human child. The room was filled with murmurs of agreement, but the weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. Maya's mind raced as she walked toward the door, her resolve hardening with each step. This was just the beginning. What came next would determine the future of humanity. The first shot had been fired. And Earth would answer. As Maya left the room, her thoughts shifted. She knew the risk. The Council would retaliate, but the only thing she was certain of was that Earth would never stand down. This was more than a war for survival, it was a war for recognition, for dignity. Her hand brushed against the panel on the wall as she passed, her fingers cold. The fleet would rise. And when it did, no one would ever underestimate humanity again. The underground hangar doors groaned as they slowly parted, revealing the colossal ships resting in the shadowed depths of Earth's oceans. Maya Cross stood at the threshold, the harsh lights from the control room casting long shadows across her face. Behind her, the hum of the military base was deafeningly loud, but here, in this cavernous space, there was a strange stillness. The ships, some over 2,000 years old, were silent sentinels waiting for a signal. Maya's heart beat faster. The fleet. Earth's greatest secret. A force that had been hidden away, untouched and untapped, buried beneath the ocean floor, guarded by a handful of men and women who had sworn never to reveal its existence. Until now. Marlowe, the lead scientist behind the fleet's revival, stood beside her. He adjusted his glasses nervously. Captain, the systems are coming online now. It's taking longer than expected to reboot some of the older vessels. The technology is ancient, but it's still functional. They'll be ready. Maya didn't respond right away, her gaze focused on the vast silhouettes of the ships ahead. The fleet had been hidden for centuries, originally crafted by a race long extinct. A race that humanity had never fully understood. What they did know was that the ships were unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. Some of the technology was incomprehensible to even the most brilliant minds on Earth. But it didn't matter. They had no choice now but to make it work. Tell me, Maya finally spoke, her voice hard and focused, how much longer until we're ready to launch? Marlowe took a slow breath. Another few hours at least. We'll be able to deploy the first wave within the next 24 hours, but the rest will take time. That's too long, Maya snapped. The Council won't wait. We need to strike now. The hum of an engine vibrated through the floor as one of the ships in the distance powered up, its ancient engines roaring to life for the first time in millennia. Maya's eyes narrowed as she studied the ship, a massive, triangular vessel with sleek, jagged edges that looked more like something from an ancient myth than a modern war machine. You'll have it sooner than that, Marlowe said, reading her impatience. The first ship is ready to launch now. Maya's lips pressed together in determination. This was it. No turning back. Ava's death had pushed them past the point of no return, and now it was time to make a statement. Earth would show the Council what it had been hiding. And what they had underestimated. Back at Earth's military high command, the mood was tense. A series of holographic screens displayed updates from various branches of the military, each marked with countdown timers and operational readiness statuses. General Hawkins stood near the central command station, a grim look on his face as he watched the data flow in. "Admiral Carter, the first wave is ready. We can launch within the hour," Hawkins said, his tone clipped. Carter, pacing in front of the holograms, stopped for a moment and looked up. "Are we sure about this? We're talking about full-scale war. The Council won't just retaliate, they'll crush us if we're not careful." Maya entered the room, her presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. "The Council already made their move. We're not reacting anymore. We're taking the initiative. If we don't act now, they'll see this as weakness." There was a long silence. Carter met Maya's gaze, his eyes cold but filled with understanding. "You're right. If we don't make this count, we might not have another chance." Maya turned to Hawkins, who was staring at his screen. "Are the ships in position?" she asked. "Yes, Captain," Hawkins replied. "The first wave of ships has been prepped. The fleet's coordinates are locked in. We're ready to engage." "Do it," Maya ordered, her voice ringing with authority. Above Earth's atmosphere, the ancient ships began to rise from the depths. Their massive forms broke through the surface of the ocean, sending waves crashing into the air as they ascended. The sight was almost surreal. These ships, relics of a long-lost civilization, were now returning to the sky, ready to answer humanity's call. Maya stood on the observation deck of the command station, watching as the first ships entered orbit. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek, angular, and intimidating. The weapons systems were more advanced than anything the Council had ever encountered, but it was the unknown nature of the ship's capabilities that made them so terrifying. Even after all this time, their full potential remained a mystery. "Launching in 3, 2, 1. Hawkins' voice came over the comms, his tone professional despite the weight of the moment. "We're sending the first wave now." The view screens in front of Maya flickered, and within moments, a fleet of ships surged into deep space, their course set for the Galactic Council's capital. It would take several days for the ships to reach Council space, but the message was clear: humanity was no longer a passive player in the galactic order. They were a force to be reckoned with. Maya's thoughts raced. The fleet was on its way. The first strike would send a powerful message, but the real challenge was yet to come. The Council would retaliate with everything they had. They would not let Earth's challenge go unanswered. But no matter the cost, Maya knew one thing: Earth would not kneel. At the Galactic Council Citadel, the news came as a shock. Tharn Vakros, the cold leader of the Justice Division, stood in front of a vast holographic display of Earth's fleet, his eyes narrowed with a mix of disbelief and anger. "They've launched," Vakros muttered under his breath. "Impossible." His aide, a tall, thin being from the Trallic species, stepped forward. "Sir, the human fleet appears to be a mix of ancient ships, vessels we have never encountered before. Their capabilities are unprecedented." Vakros' eyes hardened. "It doesn't matter. We'll crush them. Earth has no idea what it's provoked." He turned sharply, looking at the fleet above him, each ship a reminder of the Council's power. But for the first time, he was unsure. These human ships, they weren't just a challenge, they were a revelation. Earth had something the galaxy hadn't even known existed. "Prepare for immediate retaliation," Vakros ordered, his voice ice-cold. "Let's show Earth the consequences of challenging the Galactic Council." Back on Earth, Maya watched the unfolding events from the command station, her fingers gripping the edges of the console. "The first wave is just a warning," she said quietly to herself. But this is only the beginning. As the ancient ships vanished into the depths of space, Maya knew the next few days would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The Council would retaliate, and the fight would be fierce. But Earth would stand firm. The future of humanity was no longer in the hands of the Council. It was in the hands of the fleet, and its commander. The tension in the command room was palpable. Every screen flickered with real-time data, ship trajectories, communication intercepts, and intelligence reports from Earth's deep space sensors. Maya stood at the head of the table, her eyes locked on the holographic display of the Galactic Council's defensive perimeter. The fleet was almost there. Soon, the full force of humanity's ancient warships would breach the Council's borders. The first wave had been deployed, its ships now halfway to their destination. Yet, the Council's response was swift, unpredictable. They weren't wasting time. The reports showed multiple fleet movements and defensive systems coming online across Council space. "They're mobilizing," General Hawkins said, his voice clipped. "It won't be long before they intercept our ships." Maya's eyes narrowed. The Council was powerful, but their arrogance had made them blind to what Earth had hidden for centuries. "Let them come. We've waited too long to back down now." "Captain," Admiral Carter interjected, "we're not just facing their fleets. The Council has more resources than we can even imagine. The first wave is a test, but the next move, that's where it gets dangerous." Maya turned to him, her jaw set. "I know the stakes, Carter. We have no other choice. We strike first, or we don't strike at all. Earth has made its move." She turned back to the tactical display. The first ships were nearing the Council's outer defenses. Maya felt a pulse of anticipation. The fleet was ready. Earth's greatest secret, the ancient ships, were no longer buried in the ocean depths. They had awoken. In the vast expanse of Council space, the first wave of Earth's fleet came into view. The ships emerged from the shadows of deep space, their sleek forms gliding forward with deadly precision. Each ship was a marvel of forgotten technology, its weapon systems more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. But it wasn't just the power of the ships that mattered. It was what they represented. The fleet was Earth's declaration of independence. Inside the lead ship, the Titan, Maya stood at the helm, her hands clasped behind her back. The rumble of the ship's engines reverberated beneath her feet as she gazed out at the view screen. Stars twinkled in the distance, but between them, the Council's defensive fleet was assembling, their forms growing larger on the tactical display. "Maya," Marlowe's voice came through the comms, "we're receiving transmissions from the Council. They're aware of our presence. Expect an engagement." "Let them come," Maya replied, her voice steady. She turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for battle." The command room went quiet as the crew went into action, manning their stations with practiced efficiency. Maya watched the screen intently. This wasn't just a military operation. It was a statement. She'd seen the Council's arrogance firsthand. Now, they would see humanity's resolve. Back on Earth, General Hawkins and Admiral Carter tracked the developments with grim expressions. The first wave had entered the outer perimeter of the Council's defensive systems, and the countdown to full-scale engagement was ticking down. "Hawkins, get me a live feed from the fleet," Maya's voice crackled through the comm. Hawkins nodded, pressing a series of buttons on the command console. Within seconds, a live visual feed from the Titan appeared on the main display. The colossal ships now loomed ahead of the Council's defenses, a mixture of deep bronze and silver plating glistening in the starlight. "They're close," Carter muttered, studying the screen. "The Council's fleets are coming into firing range. They're not hesitating." "Neither will we," Maya said, her voice resolute. "Target their flagship. Let's show them we're serious." On board the Titan, the weapons systems hummed to life. A series of plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes glowed brightly, powering up for their first strike. The tactical display showed the Council's fleet moving into formation, preparing to engage. Maya's hand hovered over the console. The moment of truth was at hand. Would the fleet perform as expected, or would humanity's gamble unravel? "Fire," she commanded. The Titan shuddered as the first shot was released, a brilliant arc of energy, streaking across the void toward the flagship of the Council's fleet. The shot was precise, striking the Council vessel dead center. A massive explosion rocked the enemy ship, sending shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. "We've breached their shields," Marlowe reported, his voice filled with astonishment. "The weapon systems on these ships, they're unmatched." Maya allowed herself a small smile. The Council had underestimated humanity's capability, and now they were paying for it. But the victory was short-lived. The Council's retaliatory strike came moments later. A barrage of plasma fire erupted from their warships, streaking toward Earth's fleet. The ship's shields flickered as they absorbed the blows, but Maya could see the strain on the systems. Earth's fleet had power, but they hadn't been tested in combat for centuries. "Shields are holding," Hawkins reported from Earth. "But we're taking heavy fire." Maya clenched her fists, her heart pounding. She couldn't afford to let the Council break their line. "Redirect power to the forward shields," she ordered. "Target their engines. We take out their ability to maneuver, and they'll be sitting ducks." "Understood," came the response. The Titan shook again as another volley from the Council ships hit their shields, but Maya's orders were carried out without hesitation. The massive energy cannons of the Titan fired once more, ripping through the space between them and the Council's formation. One by one, the enemy ships began to fall into chaos. Engines exploded, and vessels were left drifting, dead in the water. The tide of battle shifted. Back on Earth, General Hawkins watched as the feed from the battle unfolded on the screen. The initial shockwave of Earth's fleet had done more than just break through the Council's outer defenses, it had rattled them. The Council's flagship was in flames, and the fleet's formations were collapsing. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer an insignificant player. But Hawkins knew better than to celebrate. "This is just the beginning," he muttered to himself, his eyes trained on the screen. "They'll retaliate harder." "Captain, the Council's reinforcements are en route," Carter said, his voice grim. "We've only bought ourselves a few moments. We need to prepare for the next wave." Maya stood at the command center of the Titan, looking out at the scattered debris of the destroyed Council ships. There was no turning back now. Earth had drawn a line in the sand, and the galaxy would never be the same. "Get ready," she said, her voice cold with resolve. "The real fight begins now." As the stars stretched before them, Maya Cross knew one thing for certain: humanity would fight with everything it had, or it would die trying. And she was prepared for either outcome. The battle was far from over, but the atmosphere in the command room of the Titan was suffocating. Maya Cross stood at the center of the station, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the tactical displays. The remnants of the Council's first wave floated in the void, their debris marking the beginning of a war that no one could have predicted. "Captain," Marlowe's voice broke through the silence. "We've intercepted a high-priority transmission from the Council. They're preparing reinforcements, heavier reinforcements." Maya's jaw tightened. The first wave had been just a prelude. Earth's surprise attack had caused chaos, but now the real challenge was about to begin. The Council wasn't just a passive observer, it was a juggernaut. "We knew they wouldn't just fold," she said, her voice low but firm. "What's their estimate on arrival time?" "They're already mobilizing at full speed," Marlowe replied, his fingers flying over his console. "The reinforcements are within 2 days' travel. The closest fleet is already on their way." Maya nodded, her mind calculating their options. 2 days. They had 2 days to hit the Council hard enough to force a response, but soft enough to leave them scrambling. "Prepare all ships for immediate re-engagement," she ordered. "We can't let up now." The crew around her moved into action. The Titan was a well-oiled machine, and Maya had trained with these people for years. They were ready. On the other side of the galaxy, the Council's high command was in a state of frantic disarray. The audacity of Earth's attack had shaken their very foundation. Tharn Vakros, Supreme Commander of the Council's armed forces, sat in his darkened war room, staring down at the glowing holographic map of the galaxy. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, his fingers drumming nervously on the console. "General Drax, give me the status report on the reinforcements," Vakros demanded, his voice dangerously calm. Drax, a tall alien with armored scales and a deep scar running across his face, stepped forward. The first wave of reinforcements is en route, as expected. We'll have them within the next 24 hours. But, the humans' attack is unlike anything we've encountered. Their ships, they're older, but their weaponry is, he hesitated, unsure of how to describe the power they had witnessed. It's beyond anything we anticipated. They've hit us hard, and their ships are resilient. Vakros leaned forward, eyes narrowed. Resilient? They're human. How are they still standing? They're not standing, sir. They're fighting. Drax paused, letting the implication settle. It's not just their ships, it's the way they're coordinating, their tactics. They're not reacting to our attacks, they're anticipating them. They know exactly what to do, almost as if they've been planning this for centuries. Vakros clenched his fists. Are you telling me the humans have been preparing for this all along? 1,000 years of hiding their potential, waiting for a moment like this? More than likely, yes, Drax replied, his voice tinged with awe. This is not just a rebellion. It's a declaration of war. And they've come prepared. Vakros straightened, his face hardening. Then let's make sure they regret it. Prepare the fleets. Earth's rebellion ends now. Back on the Titan, Maya felt a pulse of dread race through her as the next transmission came through. The Council wasn't going to sit idle, and their reinforcements were moving faster than she'd hoped. But this was no time for hesitation. We have a new target, Maya announced, her eyes scanning the data coming in. The second fleet is closer than expected. Our best shot at a tactical victory is to destroy their flagship before their reinforcements arrive. Marlowe looked up. Do you think we can do it? Their flagship is well protected. We'll have to, Maya said, her voice steel. This is our chance to land a blow they'll feel. If we take their flagship, the rest will fall apart. Prepare all ships for assault. The crew buzzed into action, coordinating with the other ships in Earth's fleet. Maya's eyes flickered to the clock. Less than a day until the reinforcements would arrive. This was it. Earth had one chance to make this count. As the Titan and the rest of Earth's fleet moved toward the Council's flagship, Maya felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. There were moments when everything clicked, when her purpose became clear and undeniable. This was her moment. Captain, Marlowe's voice crackled through the comms, pulling her from her thoughts. We've got a problem. The Council has launched a surprise counterattack, multiple fleets. Damn it, Maya muttered under her breath. They're faster than we thought. But it's too late for them to stop us now. We go for the flagship, and we make it count. Maya's fingers danced across the console, giving the final order. All ships, focus fire on the flagship. Target their central command systems. We cripple them now or we die trying. In the vast emptiness of space, the battle between Earth's fleet and the Council's forces raged on. The Council's ships were formidable, but the power of Earth's fleet was undeniable. Each ship seemed to act in unison, as if they were an extension of Maya's will. Every command was followed with unerring precision. The flagship was coming into view, its massive structure dwarfing the other ships around it. Target locked, the weapons officer called out. Ready to fire. Do it, Maya said, her voice calm but filled with conviction. The Titan's massive cannons fired in unison, sending a barrage of energy shots toward the flagship. The first round of blasts slammed into its shields, but the Council flagship held strong. Maya's jaw tightened. We need more firepower. Power to the forward cannons, she ordered. The crew worked quickly, shifting power from non-essential systems to the weapons, focusing everything they had on one goal. The next barrage of fire hit the flagship with devastating accuracy. This time, the shields couldn't withstand the pressure. A massive explosion erupted across the flagship's hull, sending shockwaves through the surrounding ships. Maya watched, heart racing, as the flagship shuddered, its main power core failing. The Council's ship was crippled, and with it, their strategic advantage. But Maya knew this was only the beginning. The reinforcements were still coming. They had struck a blow, but the Council was far from defeated. Prepare for counterattack, Maya barked, her gaze hardening as she watched the fleet crumble around her. This war is far from over. And deep down, she knew it, Earth had taken its first step into the galaxy's fight, and the Council's fury was only just beginning. The atmosphere in the Titan's command room was thick with the hum of activity. Maya stood at the front, her eyes fixed on the tactical display that filled the room. The fleet had dealt a crushing blow to the Council's flagship, but it hadn't been enough to break their resolve. The counterattack had begun, and it was far more intense than anticipated. "Report," Maya demanded, her voice sharp, cutting through the hum of the crew. "Captain," Marlowe said, his face tense as he glanced at his console. "The Council's reinforcements have arrived. It's a full-scale fleet, much larger than we predicted. The flagship is down, but they've already sent more ships into the fray." Maya clenched her fists. The victory had been satisfying, but it had come at a price. The Titan had taken significant damage during the assault, and they hadn't been able to completely neutralize the Council's fighting strength. Their reinforcements were well armed, better coordinated, and in greater numbers. "How many ships?" she asked, pushing back the wave of exhaustion that threatened to cloud her judgment. "Over 30 warships, Captain." "They're massing on our flank," Marlowe replied, his voice betraying the gravity of the situation. "We need to fall back, or they'll overwhelm us." Maya looked at the display, where the Council ships clustered together like a wall of iron and fire. Each was a looming threat, its weapons primed and ready. Earth's fleet had taken the upper hand, but it was clear now, the Council would not let them have it easily. "We can't fall back," Maya said firmly. "We've already broken their line once, and we can do it again. Target their weak points, disable their weapons, and hit them hard." General Hawkins' voice crackled through the comms from Earth. "Maya, you've got no room to maneuver. The reinforcements are closing in fast. You're outnumbered 3-1. Maya didn't flinch. "I know, General. We don't have the luxury of retreat. If we don't strike now, we lose the initiative. We hit them hard, now." The battle was about to escalate. The Council's reinforcements weren't merely larger in number, they were more sophisticated, their ships designed for deep space combat. But Earth's fleet had an edge that no one, not even the Council, could have predicted: human ingenuity. And above all, Maya's leadership. She activated the fleet-wide comms, her voice strong. "Listen up, all ships. We've faced worse odds before, and we've won. We'll do it again. Focus on disorienting their fleets. Hit their engines, disrupt their comms. We have the upper hand in speed and tactics." Marlowe and the crew worked quickly to analyze the incoming Council forces. Maya's mind was already working, sifting through possibilities. The Council's ships were organized, efficient, but their predictability was their greatest flaw. They had one weakness: coordination. "We'll divide their forces," Maya continued. "Deploy the smaller ships to flank and create chaos. The larger ships will go straight for their command vessel. We've broken one flagship, let's see if we can break the next one." As the battle raged on, the void outside the Titan became a spectacle of flashing lights and explosions. The Titan's crew moved in synchronized harmony, following Maya's orders with precision. Each ship in the fleet moved as one, creating a web of fire, confusion, and destruction. Smaller ships darted in and out, harassing the larger enemy vessels, while the larger ships focused their fire on the Council's command ships. The first of the Council ships began to break away from the formation, moving to the periphery, trying to regroup. Maya's eyes narrowed. "Target their command ship," she shouted. "Full firepower, now!" The Titan's cannons roared to life, and an immense beam of energy tore across the battlefield, slamming into the Council's command vessel. Sparks erupted from the enemy ship as its shields buckled under the intense assault. Maya's heart raced, but she knew it wasn't over yet. This wasn't the end, it was just a turning point. The enemy retaliated with fury, bringing every weapon to bear on the Titan. The ship shook violently as blasts rocked it from all sides. Shields flickered, and warning alarms blared through the command room. "We're taking heavy damage." Marlowe yelled. Shields are down to 30%. Hold them off. Maya ordered. I want all defensive systems online. Get those shields back. Inside the Titan, chaos had erupted. The hum of the engines, the clicks of the weapons systems, the chatter of the crew, all blended into a single, unified sound of desperate survival. Maya had seen countless battles, but nothing like this. This was a test of endurance, of willpower. The Council had underestimated humanity's capacity for resistance, and now they were paying for it. Captain, one of the tactical officers called out, the Council's command ship is in critical condition. We've breached their core. Maya allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The flagship was falling. But the cost had been steep. Earth's fleet was bruised, battered, and struggling to maintain formation. The battle had drained them, and reinforcements were still on their way. They're pulling back, Marlowe said, looking up at the screens. The Council's command ship is done. They're retreating. Maya didn't breathe easy. Not yet. I want full scans of their fleet. They won't be retreating for long. They'll regroup, and we'll need to finish this quickly. On Earth, General Hawkins and Admiral Carter were tracking the battle's progress. The initial report had been grim, but now there was a glimmer of hope. Earth's fleet had done the impossible, they had cracked the Council's defenses, and the tide was beginning to turn. Hawkins, Admiral Carter's voice came over the comm, what's the status? Captain Cross is leading the charge, Hawkins replied. She's holding the line. The fleet's taking damage, but they're pressing forward. I knew she'd do it, Carter said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. She's the one. Earth's got a future after all. But Hawkins wasn't celebrating. Not yet. We've still got a long way to go, Admiral. The Council won't give up this easily. They'll regroup, they'll reinforce, and we'll be facing them again soon enough. Carter fell silent for a moment. So, what's our next move? Wait, Hawkins said, his eyes scanning the battle data. We let them think they've won, then we hit them harder than they could ever imagine. Back in space, Maya watched as the Council's remaining ships began to retreat. Their formations broke apart, a sign of their crumbling confidence. But as she surveyed the damage, she couldn't shake the feeling that this victory came at a cost, one that would take time to understand. Report, she said, her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. We've taken heavy casualties, Marlowe said, his face grim. 5 ships are out of commission, and we've lost several crew members. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of it all. Earth's fleet had won this round, but victory had come with a price. The Council would regroup, and the war was far from over. Yet, for the first time, Maya felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before, hope. The humans had made their mark. And the galaxy would remember it. We'll rebuild, she said softly, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. And we'll fight again. For Earth. For humanity. The war had just begun, and humanity's story was only starting to unfold. The silence in the command room of the Titan was unbearable. Even the hum of the ship's engines seemed distant, as if muted by the weight of the last few hours. The battle with the Council's reinforcements had been a resounding success. They had broken through, pushed the enemy back, and dealt significant damage. Yet, despite the victory, Maya Cross couldn't shake the feeling that something far more dangerous was on the horizon. The Council would not accept defeat quietly. Captain, Marlowe's voice broke through her thoughts, his expression grim as he studied his console. We've intercepted another transmission. It's from the Council. They're organizing an even larger fleet, much larger this time. Maya's jaw tightened. She had been expecting this, but hearing it out loud made it all the more real. The Council wasn't just going to surrender, they were coming for Earth, and they were bringing everything they had left. How much time do we have? She asked, her tone colder than usual. About 3 days, Marlowe replied. They've already started mobilizing. This time, it's not just a few ships, we're talking about hundreds of warships. They're pulling out all the stops. Maya stood still for a moment, her mind racing. They had done well so far, but the Council's next move would be different. Larger, more coordinated, and with an overwhelming force. A direct assault on Earth was coming. She had no illusions about it. "We need to reinforce our position," she said finally. "Start prepping the fleet for a full defense. We have 3 days to make sure Earth is ready for what's coming." On Earth, General Hawkins and Admiral Carter were locked in a tense meeting. Hawkins stood by a large holotable, watching as projections of the incoming Council fleet flashed before his eyes. The numbers were staggering. "This is it," Hawkins muttered, his eyes narrowing as the holographic fleet swarmed across the table. "The Council's going to launch everything they have at us. We can't fight this head-on. We need a new strategy." Admiral Carter crossed his arms, his gaze focused on the projections. "Agreed. If we engage them in open space, we're done. But if we pull back, the Council will just keep coming. They'll steamroll us." "There's a third option," Hawkins said, his voice low and steady. "We don't fight them directly. We use guerrilla tactics. Strike from the shadows, cripple their advance, and force them into a protracted war they can't win." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we hit and run, cause as much damage as possible, and make them chase us through the stars? It'll wear them down, but it'll take time and resources we don't have." "Exactly," Hawkins replied. "We have to force them into a war of attrition. The Council thinks it can crush us in a single, overwhelming strike, but it doesn't know humanity. We'll make them pay for every inch." Back aboard the Titan, Maya was already formulating her plan. The battle with the Council had taught her one thing: humanity was capable of incredible things when cornered. The idea of retreating wasn't in her nature, but buying time, striking where it hurt, and forcing the enemy into a drawn-out conflict, this was the way forward. "We can't just defend, we need to be a thorn in their side," she said aloud to the crew. "Marlowe, get me a list of every weak point we can exploit in the Council's fleet. We need to know where to hit them and how to get away before they can retaliate." "Acknowledged," Marlowe replied, his fingers flying across the console. "I'll compile the data." Maya glanced at the view screen, her gaze distant. "We're not just protecting Earth. We're buying time to rally the rest of humanity. Time to make the Council realize that we're not just another species to be trampled." 3 days later, Maya's plan was in full motion. The Titan led a small but agile fleet of Earth's best ships, skirting the edges of the Council's incoming force. They knew the enemy was massive, but they also knew that speed and precision were their greatest assets. Maya had the fleet positioned in a series of hidden positions, ready to strike the Council's supply lines, disrupt their communications, and destroy key ships before they could even make contact with Earth. The first strike came at dawn. "Targets acquired," Marlowe said, his voice calm. "Weapons primed and ready." Maya's eyes locked on the tactical display. "Do it. All ships, engage." The Titan's cannons fired in rapid succession, sending precise bursts of energy into the heart of a Council supply convoy. Ships exploded in a fiery blaze, the shockwaves sending ripples through the battlefield. Within seconds, the convoy was crippled, a handful of ships drifting aimlessly in the void. "Reposition now," Maya barked. "We're not staying to fight." The Titan and its fleet moved with speed and precision, darting between the debris of the destroyed ships and heading into the cover of nearby asteroid fields. The Council ships would be able to regroup, but by the time they did, the humans would be long gone, leaving behind only chaos and confusion. The first successful strike sent a ripple of unease through the Council fleet. They hadn't expected this kind of resistance, let alone the audacity to strike so deep into their supply chain. It was a warning, a promise that Earth would not fall quietly. Back at the Council's command ship, Supreme Commander Tharn Vakros paced furiously. The humans had once again proven to be more than a nuisance, they were a real threat. The Council had underestimated them, but no more. This was not just a rebellion. This was the beginning of a war. "General Drax," Vakros snapped. "Get me a full report on that last attack. Drax stepped forward, his expression cold but tinged with anger. "Sir, it appears that the humans have shifted tactics. They're not engaging head-on. They're using guerrilla tactics, hitting our supply lines, crippling our communications. We've already lost several key vessels." Vakros clenched his fists, his eyes burning with fury. "Those humans, how dare they?" "They're clever," Drax said, his tone clipped. "They know we're coming. They're forcing us into a drawn-out conflict. If we don't do something soon, they'll bleed us dry." Vakros stared at the display, a sickening realization creeping over him. Earth had nothing left to lose. They had no choice but to fight, and in this fight, they were beginning to find their strength. It was a realization that sent a chill down his spine. "We need to act quickly," Vakros said finally, his voice low. "Call for reinforcements from the outer rim. We'll crush them before they can regroup." On the Titan, Maya felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Their first strike had been a success, but it was only the beginning. The Council would adapt, and Earth's window of opportunity was shrinking. "Marlowe," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Prepare the fleet for another strike. We're not done yet. Keep the pressure on them. We need to hit their fuel depots next." Marlowe didn't hesitate. "Understood, Captain. We'll make them regret ever underestimating us." Maya turned toward the view screen, staring at the vast expanse of space. She knew the Council would retaliate, and the war was far from over. But for the first time since this conflict began, she felt a surge of confidence. Humanity was fighting back, and the Council would have to fight for every inch. This war had only just begun, and Earth would make sure the Council knew they were never truly alone in the galaxy. "Let's make it count," Maya said, her voice a whisper, but filled with fierce determination. "For humanity. For Earth." The battle was just beginning, and the shadows of retaliation loomed large. But Maya knew one thing: Earth would stand its ground. The tension aboard the Titan had reached a boiling point. After a series of lightning-fast strikes against the Council's supply lines, Earth's fleet had caused significant damage, but it wasn't enough. The Council was mobilizing faster than anticipated, and Maya Cross knew it was only a matter of time before their next move was decisive. The shadow of retaliation hung over them like a storm waiting to break. The command room was quiet, save for the steady beeping of the consoles and the soft hum of the ship's systems. Maya stood at the helm, her arms folded across her chest as she watched the data feed on the main screen. The Council's response was coming, and it would be brutal. "Captain, we've received new intel," Marlowe's voice broke the silence. He turned to her, a grim expression on his face. "The Council is launching a full-scale invasion. Their reinforcements from the Outer Rim are already on the move, and they've sent a massive fleet toward Earth. We have less than 48 hours before they hit our borders." Maya nodded, not surprised by the news, but the weight of it still sank deep into her chest. The time for small skirmishes was over. Now, Earth would face the full wrath of the Council. "Get me a fleet-wide update," she ordered. The screen shifted to display a map of the solar system, with the Council's forces marked by red blips on the outskirts. Earth's own fleet, although bolstered by recent victories, was still outmatched in numbers and firepower. "We're outgunned," Marlowe continued, eyes narrowing as he examined the fleet positions. "The Council has more ships, more firepower. And they're coming in with an armada large enough to crush any resistance." "We won't be crushed," Maya replied, her voice calm but unwavering. "We've already shown the Council that we're not going to bend to their will. Now we show them that we're capable of more than just resistance, we're capable of victory." The room fell silent again, but Maya could feel the weight of the crew's eyes on her. They were all looking to her for direction, for hope. She couldn't afford to falter. Back on Earth, General Hawkins sat in the war room with Admiral Carter, reviewing the latest reports from the Titan and the rest of the fleet. The situation was dire. The Council's forces had gathered in a massive fleet, one that would overwhelm Earth's defenses if not stopped. But Hawkins was not one to shy away from impossible odds. We don't have much time, Hawkins said, his voice steady as he examined the intelligence from the front lines. The Titan is holding its ground, but it can't take on the Council's entire fleet. We need to strike now, before they reach Earth. Admiral Carter nodded. What's your plan? We can't stop the invasion head-on, but we can cripple their ability to launch it in the first place, Hawkins said. We hit their command hub in the Outer Rim, destroy their flagship, take out their communication relay, and scatter their forces. We don't need to win this battle, we need to delay their arrival long enough to get Earth's fleet into position. It was a risky move, one that could cost them dearly. But Hawkins had seen the resolve in the eyes of his officers, in the faces of the soldiers who had volunteered for this war. They were willing to give everything. He couldn't let them down. Back aboard the Titan, Maya was already coordinating the next phase of their strategy. The plan was simple: hit the Council's flagship, create confusion, and scatter their fleet. She had no illusions about the difficulty of the task, but if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was turning the impossible into the inevitable. Status report, she said to Marlowe. We've repositioned the fleet, he replied, his fingers flying over the controls. We've got a good angle on the Council's flagship. It's heavily guarded, but we've got enough firepower to make a dent. Not a dent, Maya said, her voice sharp. We're going to cripple it. Take down their communications first. Without that, they won't be able to coordinate the invasion. Marlowe nodded, his expression focused. Understood. But Captain, there's a problem. The flagship's defenses are strong. We're going to have to go in close to get through their shields. It's a risky move. Then it's the right one, Maya said, her gaze hardening. We're not playing it safe. We're going to hit them hard, take the fight to them. Full engagement. As the Titan and its accompanying fleet closed in on the Council's flagship, the scale of the coming confrontation became clear. The enemy ship loomed large on the view screen, its sleek hull bristling with weapons and shield generators. The surrounding ships formed a tight perimeter, an impenetrable wall of firepower. Deploy the fleet, Maya ordered, her voice cool and controlled. We need to hit them fast and hard. The fleet surged forward, smaller ships darting through the void while the larger ships, including the Titan, braced for impact. Maya's pulse quickened as she watched the Council's fleet react, their ships pivoting into defensive positions. The battle was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. We're within range, Marlowe called out. Shields at full power. Weapons primed. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Maya commanded, her hands gripping the edge of the console. All ships, initiate attack sequence on my mark. The Titan shuddered as it fired its first salvo, a massive energy blast that tore through the darkness and slammed into the flagship's shields. The impact was followed by a ripple of explosions, and for a moment, Maya dared to hope. Then the return fire came. Shields holding. Marlowe yelled as the ship rocked again. But we're taking damage. The enemy's firing in all directions. Don't stop firing, Maya ordered. We need to break through. The battle was a cacophony of flashing lights and screams of dying ships. Explosions rippled through the emptiness, shaking the Titan to its core. Maya's hands never left the controls as she barked orders to her crew, her mind constantly calculating their next move. Back on Earth, General Hawkins watched the battle unfold in real time on his holographic display. The Titan's fleet was engaged in a desperate struggle against the Council's flagship, and the strain was evident. The battle was brutal, Earth's forces were being pushed to the brink, but Hawkins could see the cracks forming in the Council's armor. They weren't invincible, not by a long shot. This is it, Hawkins said under his breath. We have one shot. He turned to Admiral Carter, who stood beside him. Prepare the Earth fleet for launch. We're giving them everything we've got. The battle above Earth raged on, and Maya's strategy was working. The Council's forces were slowly being pushed back, their flagship weakening under the relentless barrage. But Maya knew it was only a matter of time before the Council realized what was happening. We've got a breach! Marlowe shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Their flagship's shield is down. We're going in. Maya's breath caught in her throat as the Titan broke through the final barrier, locking in on the heart of the Council's fleet. This was the moment of truth. She gave the order without hesitation. Fire everything. The Titan unleashed a barrage of firepower, sending a concentrated blast directly into the flagship's core. The explosion was deafening, the shockwave rippling through the void. The flagship shuddered, its systems failing as its once imposing silhouette collapsed in a fiery blaze. "We did it," Marlowe said, his voice breathless. Maya didn't smile. There was no time for celebration. The battle was far from over. The Council had suffered a blow, but they weren't defeated yet. Not by a long shot. "We've only just begun," she said softly. "Prepare for the next wave. The real fight is just ahead." Earth had struck back, but the war was far from over. And the echoes of this victory would reverberate across the galaxy for years to come. The Titan drifted silently, its hull scarred from the battle. The once pristine surfaces were marred with burns, dents, and the unmistakable signs of a ship that had been in the thick of a fight. Inside, the crew moved like well-oiled machinery, no time for rest, no time for recovery. The Council's retaliation was coming. Earth's fleet had taken a significant blow, but the Council's flagship was no more, and the fleet was in disarray. Now, Maya Cross had one final chance to end the war. She stood in the command room, watching the stars drift past the view screen. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. A few weeks ago, this space was filled with the hum of routine. Now, it felt as though it had taken on the weight of an entire world's survival. "Captain, the fleet is ready for the next phase," Marlowe's voice broke through the stillness. He entered the room, eyes fixed on the tactical display as he updated the status. "We've got a plan in place, but we need your go-ahead. Earth's fleet is positioned for an intercept, but it's going to be a tough fight." Maya didn't look at him right away. She kept her gaze on the cold expanse of space, her mind running through the plan once again. There were no good options left. The Council's next wave was the most formidable yet. Every ship they'd lost in the battle so far, every sacrifice they'd made, had led to this moment. Earth had been pushed to the edge of extinction, but Maya wasn't going to let that be their fate. Not while she still drew breath. "We move forward," she said finally, her voice calm but resolute. "We fight. Earth's future depends on it." Far below, on Earth, General Hawkins and Admiral Carter stood together in the war room, staring at a holographic projection of the battlefield. The sky above the planet was about to be filled with the full might of the Council's forces, hundreds of ships forming a massive blockade. "We've done all we can," Hawkins said, his voice tight with exhaustion. "The Titan has done their part, but this is it. The Council's final push." Admiral Carter nodded gravely. "We've rallied every ship we could spare, but our forces are still outnumbered. If this fails, we'll lose everything." Hawkins looked out the window, his eyes narrowing. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on his chest. A loss here meant the collapse of everything they had fought for. He turned back to Carter. "We hold the line," Hawkins said, his voice a low growl. "We don't back down, no matter what." Back on the Titan, Maya paced in front of the command console, her mind working in overdrive. The Council's fleet was large, too large to defeat in a single battle, but Maya wasn't aiming for a head-on victory. The key was to disrupt their forces, to cripple them with precision strikes and guerrilla tactics, just as they had before. She wasn't trying to win the war in one go, she was just buying Earth the time it needed. "Marlowe, how long until the enemy fleet reaches our position?" she asked, her voice steady. 10 hours, give or take," Marlowe replied. "We can't outrun them, but we can put up a fight. If we're lucky, we might be able to scatter their forces long enough for Earth's fleet to engage." Maya looked out of the viewport at the distant stars. There was no more room for doubt. Earth was at a crossroads. She turned back to face her crew. "We'll hit them hard," Maya said, her voice unwavering. "We'll split their forces, break their lines, and make them chase us through every corner of this galaxy if we have to." The hours passed in a blur of activity. Ships moved into position, weapons were primed, and the Titan led the charge, skirting the edge of the Council's incoming fleet. The plan was set. They would divide the Council's forces, pick off vulnerable ships, and force them into disarray. Maya's mind was sharp as she watched the command center around her. Every decision had to be precise. Every move had to be calculated. She could feel the pressure building as the first wave of Council ships appeared on the horizon. It was now or never. "We're in position," Marlowe said, his voice tense. "Our fleet is ready to engage. We've got a clear shot at their command ships." "Hold fire," Maya ordered. "Wait for my signal. We need to strike with everything we've got." The Titan surged forward, flanked by smaller ships. A sudden wave of enemy vessels appeared, massing toward Earth's defenses. Maya could see the Council ships closing in, their massive warships dwarfing her fleet. For a brief moment, it felt like the weight of the galaxy was pressing in from all sides. But she didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. "Now," she said, her voice sharp. The Titan fired first, the blinding pulse of energy cutting through the cold of space. Ships erupted in a fiery blaze, a few Council vessels splitting apart under the assault. The rest of the fleet followed suit, unleashing everything they had into the oncoming wave. The Council's fleet was large, but their coordination was sluggish. For every ship that fell, another one appeared in its place, but the Titan kept moving, its speed and unpredictability forcing the enemy to stretch their defenses thin. "We've breached their lines," Marlowe exclaimed. "We've got an opening. Earth's fleet is coming in." The tide of the battle began to shift. Earth's forces, though outnumbered, were now in position to strike. Their fleet engaged the Council in a brutal crossfire, cutting off escape routes and pushing the enemy into a tightening perimeter. On Earth, General Hawkins watched as the Council fleet slowly started to fragment on the holographic map. The initial chaos had given Earth's forces an opening, but they couldn't afford to hesitate. The final push had to come now. "Now, Carter," Hawkins barked, his voice urgent. "It's time to end this." Admiral Carter gave a sharp nod and relayed the order. The Earth fleet surged forward, focusing their fire on key Council ships, targeting engines, and communication arrays. It was a gamble. If the enemy managed to regroup, they would have the upper hand. But if Earth could break through now, they could win this battle. Above Earth, Maya and her fleet were locked in a desperate struggle. The Council had fought back with everything they had, but their coordination was slipping. Maya could see it in their movements, confusion, panic, and hesitation. The cracks in their defenses were widening. "This is it," Maya whispered to herself, her eyes scanning the view screen. "This is where we win." The Titan fired again, sending a deadly volley straight into the heart of the Council's flagship. The ship shook violently, its shields flickering before finally collapsing under the onslaught. The flagship's engines sputtered and died, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Maya didn't wait. "Focus fire on their remaining ships. Don't let up." The battle raged on, but with the flagship destroyed, the Council fleet began to falter. The final wave of enemy ships, without their leadership, scattered and retreated. Earth had pushed them back, and the Council was forced to retreat, broken, disorganized, and defeated. Maya stood at the command center, her breath steady. The battle wasn't over, but it was won. The Council had been stopped. Earth was safe. For now. "We did it," Marlowe said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "We've won." Maya nodded, but the relief in her chest was fleeting. There was much work to be done, but for the first time in a long while, Earth had a chance. "We've won today," she said, her voice filled with determination. "But we're not done yet. The war isn't over. And we'll be ready for whatever comes next." As the Titan drifted among the stars, the echoes of victory still lingered in the cold silence of space. Humanity had proven its strength. And though the future was uncertain, Maya knew one thing: Earth was not a species to be forgotten or underestimated. Not anymore.